And welcome to this special fall outlook. Now, before we get into the forecast of what we could expect for this fall, just a disclaimer here that we cannot forecast the future, so please take this forecast with a grain of salt, as anything over a week out is virtually impossible to forecast. Now, what we're going to take a look at first is we have three things we take a look at really for all the seasons: fall, winter, spring, and even summer. And the three things is the ENSO phase, the QBO, and the NAO. Now, there's multiple different factors that play a role in our seasonal weather throughout the year, but during the fall time, ENSO and NAO are the ones that typically influence our fall weather patterns, and the QBO, which is a fancy term, which is right over here, this typically influences our winter weather more than it does our spring, summer, and even fall weather. See that QBO, basically high altitude winds over the equator, flipping between easterly and westerly every 2 years, tweaking the jet streams and storms, which basically means for this year, for fall anyway, means that it's shifting in an easterly phase, which means there's going to be more of a ridge dominant pattern, which means milder weather in the west in the short term. In the southeast, it's more of a trough dominant pattern, which means colder weather in the east by late in the fall. And this could result in some potential snow by late October into early November, and we could have an early winter, by the way. I will have my winter outlook up possibly in the middle of October, so stay tuned for that. Now, another one is the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation. You can see it's blue up here, means it's cold, means it's in a negative phase. And we can see here pressure swings in the Atlantic. Positive NAO brings milder, wetter weather in the East Coast. Negative NAO, which is what we'll be in for this fall, means that we will be experiencing some more colder outbreaks. And we can see down here that it's going to be leaning negative, which is going to be boosting a colder eastern weather pattern, which we'll get into the models here in a little bit to break this down in simpler terms for y'all. And of course, the third one, which we'll get into next, is the ENSO pattern. Basically, y'all know what this means by now. It's basically the sea surface temperatures out there by the equator in the Central Pacific determines whether it's going to be El Nino, La Nina, or ENSO neutral. And we have been in an ENSO neutral pattern here as of late, and it's looking like we are going to be trending more towards La Nina as we head into fall and especially into winter. And it's looking like winter could be ENSO neutral as well as this upcoming spring. And if we are going to be in an ENSO neutral pattern for spring of 2026, then watch out, because it could be another wild, severe weather season next year. And we can see here, ENSO neutral now with a weak La Nina likely by fall, like I said earlier, which is going to be favoring a drier south and a wetter north. And you can see if we do come into a La Nina fall, this is what we could be seeing. I know it does say wintertime up here, but really this can go for any kind of season, really. And really much of the country is heading to a wet pattern, except for the southern half of the country. So we can see the ENSO pattern we're going to be in, like I showed y'all earlier. We see the wording that the Climate Prediction Center put out here. ENSO neutral is most likely through the late northern hemisphere summer of this year, with a 56% chance in August through October. Thereafter, a brief period of La Nina conditions is favored in the fall and early winter before reverting back into ENSO neutral. So now that we know all of this complicated jargon, let's go to get into the seasonal sea surface temperature anomalies we can see in the northern Atlantic. This plays a role in our weather, by the way. See that it is going to be in a negative phase, which is going to result in what I'm thinking could be a potentially cooler fall, especially late in the fall months, at least out east. Now, as we take a look month by month, see, of course, in August, late August at that, into September, we're still going to be in this phase, and we're going to be remaining in this phase all the way out into November and especially by December. So we're definitely going to be in a strong negative NAO as we head into the winter months. And of course, I'll be breaking that down here before y'all know it, as this year has been flying by. Now, as far as the Pacific Basin goes, we can see the reason why they're saying we're going to be in a La Nina pattern as we head into the fall months, because we got some very chilly sea surface temperatures out there near the Central Pacific and the equator, and we do have some chilly temperatures, at least sea surface temperatures here just west of California, which could inspire a trough out west and a ridge out east, which let's go ahead and get into that, by the way. And we're going to take a look at a different model here, which is going to be the CFS V2 monthly model. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at something that y'all are probably more familiar with than the NAO, QBO, and even the ENSO phase, which is our troughs and ridges. You may have heard what this is. Basically, troughs usually bring cooler and wetter weather in most cases, while ridges bring warmer and drier weather in most cases as well. Now, ridges are here in the orange, troughs in the blue for reference, and you can see at the end of the month it's looking like the eastern part of the country is going to be in a ridge, while the western part of the country is going to be in a trough. So in line with what I have been saying with the cool sea surface temperatures off the coast of California, and we can see that this is going to change as we head into fall. After September 22nd, we're going to be in a trough here out east. So we could be in for a chilly start to fall, at least here out east, while the west is going to be in a little bit of a warmer start and drier start. Now, expect this to change as we head into October and especially November, as we are going to be heading into a very cold pattern. So I'm expecting this fall to be a little bit cooler than average here out east, while the western part of the country is going to be a little bit drier and a little bit warmer than usual. And of course, the further we head out, the more uncertainty there is. But as we head into November, I would expect it to really start getting cold here in the central and eastern part of the country, which could result in some early snowfall, while the western part of the country is going to start to dry out and really remain warm. Now, this is a month-by-month basis, so let's go ahead and take a look at the seasonal basis here on the long-range model. You can see that on average in September, October, and November, we can see the eastern part of the country is going to be in a trough, which means it's going to be cooler and a little bit wetter than average for this upcoming fall, while the central and western part of the country is looking to be in a ridge, which means could be drier and warmer than normal, which we'll get into the fall foliage here in a little bit and how this plays a role in our fall foliage, which could mean that the eastern part of the country could be dealing with a late fall foliage season. But we'll get in that here in a little bit, so stay tuned, y'all. Now let's go ahead and get into our precipitation anomalies to determine whether or not we're going to be seeing above or below average precipitation for this upcoming fall. Now you can see as we head past the first day of fall, we can see that the northern half of the country, especially up here in the northeast, is going to be well above average, while the southern half of the country down to the southwest and parts of the northwest is going to be starting to dry out a little bit. Typical La Nina influence. And we can see that we're definitely going to be drying out west and down south, and we're going to start to dry out a little bit here in the northeast, and going to be very, very soggy up here in the northwest as we head into October, and we're definitely going to be coming into a soggy pattern as we head into November here in the central part of the country as well as the eastern part of the country. Now let's take a seasonal average of all of these, and we can see that from Texas on over into the Carolinas down into Florida is going to be way below average, was the desert southwest, as monsoon season is kind of starting off kind of late this year compared to previous seasons. We see the northwest also coming on drying patterns, but it's looking like the northern plains and the northern Rockies could be seeing above average precipitation, as well as the upper Midwest and the northeast. And as we take a look at the seasonal precipitation outlook by the Climate Prediction Center from September through November, we can see that really much of the country is coming in on below normal precipitation, except for the southeast down here by Florida and the northwest. Now, equal chances means either below or above average, but what I'm expecting is, since we are going to be coming in on a ridging pattern for September, and then we're going to be heading into a troughing pattern, at least out east, for October and November, I would expect the eastern part of the country here, at least up in the northeast and upper Midwest, to be a little bit above average with early season snowfall, while the western part of the country is going to be drying out. And I would expect it to be a little bit warm as well, which let's go ahead and get into the temperatures, by the way. And then we'll get into the severe weather season for fall, as we still have to worry about tornadoes in fall time, y'all. As remember, the Kentucky tornado that happened in 2021, we can still get significant severe weather all the way out through fall and even into wintertime as well. Now, as we take a look at the temperature anomalies, keep in mind that the greens and blues are the below average and the reds and oranges obviously the above average. We can see as we end August, it's looking like the central, a little bit of the western part of the country, and the eastern part of the country is going to be way below average, while the western part of the country is going to be still feeling the heat. Once we move past the first day of fall, looking like the eastern part of the country is going to remain in a below average trend, while the western part of the country is going to be feeling the heat still. Expect this to change as we head into October and especially November, as we're really going to be feeling the cool air as that North Atlantic Oscillation is going to be taking hold and causing some really cool temperatures here out east. And we can see how the QBO plays a role in our fall weather. It doesn't play much of a role as it does during wintertime, but it still plays some sort of role because it does interact with the polar vortex, breaks down a little bit, wakens it down, and then we feel it down here in the lower 48 during the winter months. Now, although we don't feel the polar vortex during the fall months, we still feel the chill in the air. And we can see that here in November, we are definitely going to be coming in on way below average temperatures, at least here in the central and eastern part of the country. But the western part of the country looks like you are going to be coming in on a ridging pattern throughout fall, which could result in a slow monsoon season and really a warm fall season out there, which could be good for those fall colors. And of course, as we head into December, we're going to take a look at this for kicks and giggles, but we can see that definitely going to be warm out west. And on average for fall, we can see that kind of a mixed bag out there, really. Expect on average that the southwest is going to be hotter than normal for this fall, while the central and eastern part of the country is going to be feeling the cool in the air sooner than you know, which could result in an early season snowfall and an uptick in some severe weather, which we'll get into that here in a little bit. But as we can see here in the seasonal temperature outlook, they're predicting that much of the country is going to be coming in on above average temperatures, which that can and will change obviously, but we can see the southwest going to be coming in on well above average temperatures, and the lighter the colors the more uncertainty there is, but basically the whole country is going to be at least above average. Now I think they're getting the data for September. As we take a look back at the troughing and ridging patterns, take a look at the end of August and into September, we can see a ridging pattern taking hold of the eastern part of the country, and then we're going to be shifting into a troughing pattern for the end of September into October and then into November, which this could feel severe weather, as there is actually two severe weather seasons. One obviously during the lead up into spring, and then back into severe weather season as we head into fall. Now we can see average tornadoes by month, at least into 2023. We typically have peak in May, but we can still get tornadoes all the way out into the fall months, right around 60 to 50 on average. And we can also get them in December. Think back to the Kentucky tornado that happened in 2021. And we can see in October the greatest chance of seeing tornadoes, as well as in November. Now I couldn't find anything on September. If I do, I'll put it right here for y'all. But we can see the reason why we see severe weather is because we have the battle of the seasons, right? We have the cold air fighting the hot air, and the cool air just wins out in general because of the Earth's tilt, and that's how that all works. And we could be coming in on that this year because we are going to be hot out west and sort of cooler than average out east, which could spark a crazy fall severe weather season. So make sure you are hyper weather aware this fall. I'll keep y'all informed, of course, on X and Facebook on all this, but should always be hyper weather aware as severe weather season occurs in spring and in fall. And we can see the La Nina influence of tornadoes and severe weather. You can see the Mid-South typically sees the most tornadoes during La Nina, as well as some large hail as well. So definitely, again, like I said earlier, make sure that you're hyper weather aware this fall. You should have wave receiver alerts this fall as well. And don't be caught off guard this upcoming season. So I hope I didn't confuse y'all, but to sum this up, basically, expect much of the country to be a little bit above average for this upcoming fall season, but I'm thinking that the eastern part of the country is going to be heading into a cooler than average fall compared to out west. Out west, I think it's going to be hotter than normal and drier than normal, while the eastern part of the country is going to be cooler than normal and a little bit wetter than normal, which could spark severe weather down here by Arkansas and Tennessee and the Mid-South region, and potentially up here in the upper Midwest as well. Now, as far as precipitation goes for this upcoming fall season, they're saying that the Northwest and Southeast down here by Florida is going to be above average, with the rest of the country dealing with equal chances, either above or below average, with majority of the country dealing with below average precipitation. Now, my thoughts are basically I'm expecting above average precipitation here in the Northeast and upper Midwest, with early snowfall potential here out east, because I'm thinking we are going to be a little bit below average for October and November with an early season snowfall expected, while the western part of the country is going to be drier and warmer than normal, with the southwest coming in on a late monsoon season. I'm thinking that they might not even get in on monsoon season this year, but that can and will change, of course, and that's why they put the below average precipitation down here, which I'm in agreement with. Now, before I forget, the meat and potatoes of hurricane season does last during the fall months, mainly from August all the way out into October and even in November in most cases. And it's looking like NOAA is holding strong with the prediction of above normal Atlantic hurricane activity. And it has been a slow season thus far, and we can see that they're predicting 13 to 18 named storms, 5 to 9 of them being hurricanes, and 2 to 5 of them being major hurricanes. And the probabilities are still the same: 50% chance of being above normal, 35% chance of being near normal, and a 15% low chance of being below normal. And you can see all the names that have been taken up. We're all the way out into Erin now, so we are in the meat and potatoes of hurricane season, y'all. Don't let your guard down yet. Always monitor the tropics if you're along the Gulf Coast states, and really along the East Coast as well, as we are, like I said earlier, in the meat and potatoes of hurricane season, and we could be dealing with intense hurricane season still, although it has been a slow start. Now, as far as what the other experts are saying about what this upcoming fall could look like, take a look at the Farmer's Almanac. They're showing us that it's going to be cool and dry here in the upper Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast. A little bit different than what the models are saying. And the central and western part of the country is going to be dry and warm. And the Northwest is going to be warm and wet, while the Southwest is going to be cool and dry, as well as over here by California. And it's looking like down here by Louisiana on over into Alabama, it's going to be warm down there with near normal precipitation. Now, of course, please take this forecast with a grain of salt, as fall is well over a month away from now. Now, I'm thinking that we are going to be coming in on a cooler than normal fall, at least out east, because of the negative NAO, La Nina influence, and the QBO being in the easterly phase, which could mean that the eastern part of the country feels a little bit cooler than normal, although the experts at the Climate Prediction Center are saying much of the country is going to be above average, while the western part of the country, I think it's going to be drier and a little bit warmer than normal. So, of course, this can and will change. Keep that in mind. The seasonal outlooks are just predictions. That's all they are. So please take this with a grain of salt. So now that I beat the dead horse on what we could expect for this fall, here is when you could expect some peak fall foliage for your area. Now this can and will change, of course, and why am I saying that is because we did come in on a very, very hot summer here amongst much of the lower 48, and a very wet one for most of us as well, and that plays a role in what we could expect for the fall foliage to determine whether or not we're going to be early or late for this season. Now, you can see that fall foliage for this season is projected to follow a mostly typical schedule for much of the country, but with a slight delay in regions affected by lingering warmth. Peak colors are expected in October for the Northeast, Midwest, and West, extending into November in the South. In the Northeast, like New England for example, northern areas like Vermont and New Hampshire may peak from late September to early October, while southern spots hit mid-October. The Midwest follows suit, with Michigan's Upper Peninsula peaking in late September and southern states in late October. Western higher elevation areas such as Colorado Rockies could see early changes in late September, but warmer forecasts might push peaks to mid-October. Southern regions, including the Blue Ridge Mountains, may delay until mid-November due to persistent heat. In the Great Plains, like Nebraska, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota, and more, fall foliage is likely slightly delayed, with northern areas peaking mid to late October and southern spots like Kansas, Flint Hills extending to early November. Warmer, drier conditions here could mute displays in river valleys and forested pockets like South Dakota's Black Hills. So overall, some areas like the southern Ohio Valley may see delays, while northern latitudes align with typical pattern. So we can see the impact on the summer heat. Summer heat exacerbates precipitation effects, often diminishing foliage quality. That's why it was saying that some areas could see typical fall foliage and some areas could see it early or late. It just depends. This sweltering summer, which was marked by record heat and drought in large swaths of the U.S., has stressed trees, reducing their ability to produce sugars for brilliant colors. High temperatures accelerate evaporation, mimicking drought even in rained areas, and can cause early leaf scorch or drop, shifting peaks earlier in heat-affected regions like the Southern Plains, for example. In contrast, cooler, wetter summers like parts of the Northeast set up for more intense displays. Warmer falls, as predicted, may further delay chlorophyll breakdown, extending green leaves but risking less vibrancy if heat persists for the plains. Now, this summer's heat could lead to subdued colors in grasslands and forests, emphasizing the need to target hydrated areas for viewing. So the Smokies probably might not see peak foliage at least until probably November, or maybe even as late as mid-November. And I'm planning on going down there probably the next couple of years anyways to go see the fall foliage, so I'd like to get some footage for y'all down there. Now, other than the summer heat, got the role that precipitation plays in fall foliage as well. Now, precipitation is a critical driver for fall foliage timing, vibrance, and duration. Adequate spring and summer rainfall fosters healthy trees, promoting vivid reds, oranges, and yellows by supporting chlorophyll production and delaying leaf drop for a standard peak, which is mid-October to mid-November in most areas. In the plains, for example, steady moisture along river valleys like Nebraska's Niobrara enhances colors in cottonwoods and oaks. However, drought or below average fall rain forecast for parts of the west and the plains stresses trees, leading to early changes, potentially early October in the northern plains, and duller hues as leaves brown and fall prematurely. Excessive rain, possible in the south, can shorten the season by stripping leaves via storms, with this year's predictions of drier than normal conditions in the western U.S. and variable rainfall elsewhere. Expect vibrant displays where moisture was consistent, but muted ones in drought-hit spots. So basically they're saying that the western part of the country, especially up in the higher elevations, could be dealing with a early fall foliage. The Northeast is going to be coming in on a typical pattern for fall foliage, and really the rest of the country would expect a later than normal fall foliage season. So if you're heading down to the Smoky Mountains, I would suggest that probably not head down there until late October, possibly early November. But of course, please stay tuned to this page right here, explorefall.com. Very good page to see whether or not that fall foliage is peaking yet and when it can be peaking. I would expect the first signs of fall foliage to be up there in the Colorado Rockies by mid-September, shifting down towards the south as we head into the beginning of October. And peak fall foliage is late October into early November, especially in the Smoky Mountains and up here in the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Down here at the Williams Weather Headquarters, it peaks in mid to late October. I'll be getting good fall foliage for y'all. But we could be coming in on a later than normal fall foliage season this year, here amongst the eastern part of the country anyway. Western part of the country might see it earlier than normal. Northeast is going to be seeing it right on time this year because of it being a little bit drier than normal and a little bit warmer than normal. Now, what I was covering earlier is that the reason why we could be seeing fall foliage later than normal is because it's going to be so wet and cool that those colors ain't going to be so vibrant, because we have been coming in on a very scorching hot and wet summer, which could cause there not to be much fall foliage at all or even a late start. So this can change, of course. Keep y'all posted, but expect a later than normal start here in the central and eastern part of the country, but a typical start in the northeast, and a earlier than normal start here in the upper elevations of the Mountain West. And of course, Alaska is typically the first one that sees it, and Hawaii, you're typically the hardly ever see it. But now, I couldn't find much on the fall bird migration for some reason. I tried to come up with a graphic, but couldn't come up with a good idea. So here is the altitude of migrating birds in the fall. Something pretty neat. You can see that birds fly closer to the ground out east, and the further west they go, the higher they go, because the higher the altitude. And you can see where they go. Typically go down to South America during the winter months, and typically go down to Florida or Mexico, kind of like old people. Old people like to go down to Florida in the wintertime, and I don't blame them. I'm one of those people that hate the cold weather too, and would love to go down there during the winter months, because I really, really hate the cold weather and like the scorching hot weather. And here is something I'll be using this fall to track bird migration. It's the Birdcast page. Very good. These guys track the amount of birds that could be projected to move through during the night. Right around 225 million is projected to move through tonight, and even more the next couple of nights. You can see the live map right here. Right around 66.5 million birds are currently in flight. I don't know how they get that number, but looks like the birds are on the move. And I was searching this up last night, the peak fall migration window for 1,000 U.S. cities. Didn't really find much, but here is a table of when to expect peak periods to start per state. Now, I'll provide the link to this in the description down below if you want to read this for yourself, but I'll go down to Indiana and then I'll go down to my favorite state of Tennessee, at least East Tennessee anyway. Now, Indianapolis, y'all typically see peak migration beginning of September into the beginning of October. And my favorite state, at least in East Tennessee anyway, Knoxville, at the end of September and into the middle of October is when y'all typically see peak migration down there. I definitely need to get down there in the middle of October sometime and see the peak fall foliage and the peak migration down there. I think it'd be very cool footage for y'all. So maybe sometime in the future I'll put together a video for y'all of that. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that, just depends, but I'll let y'all know, of course. Estimated first frost dates in fall, typically here in Indiana, typically in October is when we see our first frost, and that's when we finally stop mowing because the grass has just grown nonstop here in Indiana because of so much rain. We typically don't see this kind of rain in August, but I guess we'll take it, better than being in a drought. You can see out west, typically earlier, typically in August, see your first frost out there. Of course, further south you go, the later the frost. And this is typically when allergy season ends. We can see that fall allergy season, primarily driven by ragweed, weeds, and mold, is forecast to be more intense this year and prolonged than average across much of the U.S. Ragweed typically peaks in mid-September, but may continue until the first frost, with symptoms potentially lasting longer this year. Now, duration and intensity, seasons may start earlier, like late August in some areas, and overlap into winter, especially in southern states. Pollen counts could break records, leading to brief but severe symptom spikes. This could make this season one of the worst on record for overall allergies. Now, regional variations, the Northeast and Midwest, higher weed pollen, with cities like New Orleans ranked highest in allergy capitals in the U.S., facing worst seasons due to extended warmth and moisture. Pollen may exceed averages in 39 states, now including in the Northeast. The South, prolonged seasons in winter with new allergen patterns emerging in coastal areas like Georgia could see weed allergies peaking from late summer through fall, pretty much now. Now out west and up north, shifts where southern-like patterns appear farther north with intense but variable periods. Mold allergies may rise with wetter fall weather in the Pacific Northwest, for example. So you can see that the fall allergy season is potentially going to be lasting all the way out into winter potentially, and it could be a pretty bad one because it has been such a wet summer. We could be dealing with a very wet fall here out east with a dry fall out west, which could exacerbate fall allergy conditions, so please be aware of this. And I'll be keeping y'all posted on X and Facebook on the allergies, by the way, as well as the fall foliage and the bird migration. And of course, with fall coming up, we got the ski resorts starting to open up very, very soon. Ski season kicks off as early as mid-October in some areas, with opening dates hinging on snow conditions. In Colorado, the Keystone and Arapahoe Basin aim for mid-October and early November, respectively, while Breckenridge and Vail open by mid-November. California's Heavenly and Palisades, Tahoe target late November, and Utah's Alta and Park City follow suit around the same time. In the Northeast, Vermont's Killington often leads with a November 1st opening. Western resorts like Montana's Big Sky and Idaho's Sun Valley plan for late November starts. Of course, for a full winter escape, Canada's resorts like Whistler, Blackcomb, November 21st, and Banff's Lake Louise on November 6th are also worth considering. Always confirm exact dates with resorts, as Mother Nature, of course, can shift schedules. So you can see that ski resorts are starting to open up very soon, y'all, so get excited. So now that I covered all that, let's go ahead and get into some interesting fall facts and some folklore you most likely never knew. Starting off with some top 5 fun facts y'all most likely never knew. Now, fall weather brings cooler temperatures, shorter days, and stunning transformations in nature. Here are some intriguing facts tied to these seasonal shifts. Starting off with leaf color chemistry. Since we are going to be coming in on early fall foliage out west, a late start in the eastern part of the country, and a typical start in the northeast. Now, the vibrant reds and oranges and even yellows of fall foliage aren't caused solely by chilly weather. They're revealed as chlorophyll, the green pigment, which breaks down due to shorter days and less sunlight, allowing hidden chemicals like carotenoids and anthocyanins to shine through. Trees in direct sunlight often turn red, while shaded ones go yellow or brown. And you know why this happens is because the trees actually takes these nutrients, sucks out the energy from the leaves, and basically turns those leaves into colors pretty much. Now, shorter days and the equinox. The autumn equinox around September 22nd to 23rd marks when day and night are nearly equal, after which nights grow longer. This shift triggers many seasonal changes, trees slowing photosynthesis to prepare for winter. And did you know that sound travels farther in cold air? Fall's cooler temperatures make sounds like crunching leaves or crackling campfires seem crisper and louder because sound waves travel more efficiently in denser, cool air. And of course, we're going to have the harvest moon coming up here in the fall months. The full moon, which is going to be closest to the equinox, often in September or even in October, appears larger, brighter, and more golden due to its low position in the sky, historically providing extra light for farmers harvesting crops under cooler fall evenings. Now the last one, but certainly not least, fall's signature scent, the earthy fall smell, comes from geosmin, a compound released as leaves decomposed in moist, cooling ground, enhanced by falling rain and dropping temperatures. Now on to some folklore that y'all most likely did not know. Animal signs for winter predictions. Did you know if birds, badgers, rabbits, or even deer are fat in gray coats during October, it foretells a harsh, cold winter ahead, as animals bulk up in preparation for tough conditions. Rain and temperature omens. Much rain in October signals a windy December, while a warm October predicts a cold February. Conversely, heavy frost and wind in October suggest a mild January and February. Ice and thunder warnings. Ice in October, thick enough to bear up a duck, indicates a wet and mucky winter. Thunder in October signifies strong winds and potential crop shortages. Saint days and calm spells. A fine St. Denis Day, which is October 9th, precedes a hard winter, while St. Luke's Little Summer, around October 18th, brings a brief period of calm, dry weather, often called an Indian summer, if it extends later. Mythological roots. In Greek folklore, autumn's cooler weather and dying plants stem from Demeter's grief over Persephone's descent to the underworld, symbolizing the seasonal slowdown until spring's return. The last one here, leaf and moon lore. If many leaves wither but cling to branches in October, expect a frosty, snowy winter. A full moon in October without frost means no frost until November's full moon. So there's some fun facts and folklore y'all most likely did not know. Now on to some wartime fall weather events. Starting off with some ancient times. The Battle of the Frigidus. In early September AD 394, during a civil war between Eastern Roman Emperor Theodosius I and Western usurper Eugenius, a fierce bora windstorm struck the battlefield along the Frigidus River in modern Slovenia. The gale blew dust and debris into the faces of Eugenius's army, blinding soldiers and causing their javelins to fall short or be blown back. This turned the tide, allowing Theodosius' forces to rout the enemy, uniting the Roman Empire and solidifying Christianity's dominance. Eyewitness accounts from the era, including poet Claudian's description, notes how the tempestuous winds hurled back their own weapons against Eugenius's troops, leading to over 10,000 deaths and Eugenius's execution. So you can see, got some ancient history relating to the weather. The next one here is the Revolutionary War, the Battle of Germantown. On October 4th of 1777, near Philadelphia, George Washington's surprise attack on British forces under William Howe was thwarted by thick morning fog that blanketed the battlefield. The fog, combined with gunpowder smoke, reduced visibility to mere feet, causing American troops to mistake each other for enemies and fire on their own lines. This confusion led to a disorganized retreat, with over 1,000 American casualties. A survivor, Lieutenant Samuel Shaw, our Continental Artillery, recalled the fog together with the smoke occasioned by our cannon and small arms rendered it impossible for us to distinguish objects at the smallest distance, highlighting how the weather turned a potential victory into defeat. Now, speaking of fog, did you know that for every fog, and I think in October, could mean a snowfall in the winter months ahead. Now, the War of 1812, the Battle of Chrysler's Farm on November 11th, 1813. Along the St. Lawrence River in Upper Canada, a smaller British-Canadian force under Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Morrison defeated a larger American army led by Brigadier General John Boyd amid cold, rainy, and sleety conditions. The harsh weather fatigued troops. British soldiers slept exposed to sleet the night before and turned the field slippery, complicating movements and artillery. This contributed to the American rout, ending their Montreal invasion with 339 casualties versus British 182. An eyewitness account from a British officer described the scene. The engagement lasted nearly 5 hours in cold, snowy weather, emphasizing how the elements amplified the misery and aided the defenders. Next one here is the Civil War, Battle of Chantilly. During the Second Bull Run Campaign on September 1st, 1862 in Virginia, a severe thunderstorm struck as Union forces under Isaac Stevens and Philip Kearny clashed with Confederates led by Stonewall Jackson. The downpour soaked gunpowder, rendering many rifles useless and forcing brutal hand-to-hand combat in the mud. This chaos led to the deaths of both Union generals and over 2,000 casualties in 90 minutes. A Confederate soldier recounted, "The rain fell in such torrents that many of the guns became wet and would not fire," illustrating how the storm equalized the fight but ultimately stalled Union pursuit. Now after that we have World War I, the Battle of Passchendaele. From October to November of 1917 in Belgium, relentless rains during the Third Battle of Ypres created a vast mud quagmire, drowning soldiers, bogging artillery, and turning shell craters into deadly traps. This hindered Allied advances against German lines, resulting in over 500,000 casualties for minimal gains. New Zealand gunner Bert Stokes described the horror: men and horses sinking into the mud, the wounded often drowned before they could be rescued, epitomizing the weather's role in the battle's futility and trench warfare's grim reality. Now the last one here in World War II, Operation Barbarossa. In October to November of 1941, during the Nazi Germany's invasion of the Soviet Union, heavy rains created the Rasputitsa mud season, miring tanks and vehicles, followed by early freezing cold that crippled unprepared German troops. This delayed the advance on Moscow, allowing Soviet reinforcements and contributing to the invasion's failure with millions of casualties. A German veteran recalled, "The rainy season and the mud did slow down the invasion. My father survived the war amid the slowdown," underscoring how fall weather favored the defenders and altered the war's course. Now from wartime weather events to some non-wartime fall weather events. First one here, the Great Storm of 1703, a night of terror on the English coast. In November of 1703, England faced its worst storm with 120-mile-an-hour winds that sank ships, toppled chimneys, and caused floods, killing over 8,000 to 15,000 people. Sailor Thomas Atkins, sole survivor of HMS Mary, wrote, "I was the only survivor from the Mary, and it was a miracle after being shipwrecked multiple times." He clung to debris on Goodwin Sands as ships vanished. The disaster inspired Daniel Defoe's The Storm and led to better naval safety. Next one here, the Great September Gale of 1815. Devastation across New England. On September 23rd of 1815, a hurricane hit New England with 11-foot surges, destroying homes, ships, and crops from Long Island to Rhode Island. Economic losses were huge, but deaths were few. A Providence survivor recalled, "Swamped the coastlines of 5 states with storm surges up to 15 feet. In Newport, a farmer noted, "Damaged crops, buildings, and ships, killed livestock and people, toppled forests, and caused a water shortage for as long as 6 months. It prompted stronger coastal builds." Now, next one here is the Galveston Hurricane of 1900, the deadliest storm in U.S. history. On September 8th of 1900, a Category 4 hurricane's 15-foot surges devastated Galveston, Texas, killing 6,000 to 10,000 people and razing buildings. An anonymous survivor wrote, in the quarter of the city where I lodged, South Park, everything was swept and nearly all drowned. Child Caroline Shaper Harris remembered the chaos. And another account states that my great-grandmother survived, found in a floating barrel for 3 days. The city raised its elevation, shifting growth to Houston. So you can see how Galveston got pretty much wiped off the map in 1900 because of this hurricane. The next one here, the Great Lakes Storm of 1913, the White Hurricane's Fury. November 7th through 10th of 1913, a blizzard with 90-mile-an-hour winds and 35-foot waves sunk 19 ships on the Great Lakes, killing over 250 sailors amid heavy snow. Crew on Howard M. Hanna endured rolling in massive waves, with 22 saved after 90 hours. A sailor described 19 ships were lost and over 250 sailors were dead. It improved forecasting and shipping safety. Now, next one here is the Armistice Day Blizzard of 1940, a deadly deception. On November 11th through 12th of 1940, a sudden Midwest blizzard with 80-mile-an-hour winds and 27 inches of snow killed 154, including hunters. A survivor testimony states that my grandfather survived by burning the gunpowder from his shells. Norman Roloff toasted survival yearly, sank Lake Michigan ships, and reformed weather predictions. Now the last one here is Superstorm Sandy of 2012. We all pretty much remember this one. It was the hybrid monster on October 29th of 2012. It was supposed to be the end of the world that year. Superstorm Sandy, a hurricane nor'easter hybrid, flooded the U.S. East Coast with 14-foot surges and 80-mile-an-hour winds, killing 233 and causing $70 billion in damage. A Staten Island survivor noted at least 23 people died on Staten Island due to Hurricane Sandy, most from drowning. Joe Mangino said, I still get choked up talking about the devastation. Another shared, everybody out. The firefighter shouted. Superstorm Sandy had arrived. In Red Hook, Brooklyn, 32 oral histories from Red Hook Sandy survivors captured the flooding's toll. Now let's go ahead and get into some astronomical events to occur this fall. Starting off with September, there's quite a few September events actually, and I did put a couple non-fall events here. Starting off with the total lunar eclipse, aka the blood moon. The moon passes fully through Earth's umbral shadow, turning a deep red hue. Visible in Asia, Australia, Eastern Africa, and parts of Europe. Maximum at 1811 UTC. I'll put the times here to convert from UTC to Eastern Standard Time. But viewing tip, no equipment is needed. Watch from a dark spot with a clear eastern horizon. The next one on the same day, we have the full corn harvest moon. The moon is fully illuminated in Aquarius, appearing bright and large near the eclipse. Viewing tip, you can see it via your naked eye. Ideal for photography. Now right around the first day of fall, on September 21st, we have the partial solar eclipse. The moon partially covers the sun, visible in New Zealand, Antarctica, and the Southern Pacific, up to 76% coverage. Occurs at 1945 UTC. Viewing tip, use solar filters or indirect methods like pinhole projections. Never, ever look at the direct sun. Some people have done that with the previous solar eclipse. People are freaking stupid. Don't be a retard. Now the next one on the same day, Saturn at opposition. Saturn magnitude 0.6 in Pisces is at its brightest and closest to Earth. Visible all night long. All night. With its rings tilted for great views. Viewing tip, a small telescope reveals the rings and moons observed after sunset. Now on the first day of fall, which is September 22nd, we have the autumn equinox. Day and night are nearly equal, signaling fall start. Viewing tip, no special viewing, obviously. It's just going to be a daylight thing. Now, September 23rd, Neptune at opposition. Neptune magnitude 7.7 in Pisces, shining the brightest, visible all night as a tiny blue dot. Viewing tip, requires a telescope, best in a dark sky. Now in October, we don't have very many events, but on October 7th, we have the full hunter's moon, aka the supermoon. The moon in Pisces at 3:49 UTC appears larger and brighter, up to 14% bigger. Viewing tip, naked eye or binoculars, great for moonlit activities. Another one on the same day in October, the Draconid meteor shower peak, up to 10 meters per hour from Comet Giacobini-Zinner, radiating from Draco. Viewing tip: early evening and dark skies, moon interference may be possible. October 21st to 22nd, Orionid meteor shower peak up to 25 fast meteors per hour from Halley's Comet, radiating from Orion. Viewing tip for that one is after midnight is best time to see it, and dark skies favorable with the new moon. Now November, we got a few events. On November 5th, we have the full Beaver Moon, another super moon, in Aries at 1321 UTC, even larger and brighter. You can observe the rising moon with no equipment needed. November 17th through 18th, the Leonid meteor shower peak up to 15 meters per hour from Comet Tempel-Tuttle, radiating from Leo. Viewing tip: after midnight, dark skies are going to be ideal. November 21st, Uranus at opposition. Uranus magnitude 5.6 in Taurus is brightest, visible all night long, with a greenish tint. Viewing tip: binoculars or telescope, scan Taurus constellation. Now, of course, we got December, which is actually technically meteorological winter, but it's still fall. You can see December 4th, we have a full cold moon, another supermoon, and Taurus at full phase, appearing oversized. Viewing tip: enjoy the bright glow, perfect for winter stargazing. Now, the last one here, December 13th to 14th, we have the Geminid meteor shower peak, up to 150 meteors per hour from asteroid Phaethon, radiating from Gemini, one of the year's best. Viewing tip: evenings or after midnight, waning crescent moon minimizes interference. So hopefully y'all enjoyed that. As a treat, if y'all stayed this far in the video, I'd like to thank y'all. We got time change that's going to be coming up on November 2nd. It's actually one of my favorite time changes because we get to fall back 1 hour instead of lose an hour. I hate losing an hour. Can never get adjusted to that time change. Fallback is my favorite kind of time change. I wish they would just leave it alone. But here is some history behind why we fast forward and fall back like we do every year. As we approach fall, the annual reversion of clocks known as fallback, and scheduled for November 2nd of this year at 2 a.m., heralds the conclusion of daylight savings time and provides a compelling insight into a historical tradition rooted in ingenuity. Originating with the ancient Romans' practice of adjusting water clocks to align with seasonal daylight variations, and inspired by Benjamin Franklin's 1784 satirical proposal to rouse Parisians with cannon fire to conserve candlelight. The modern concept of daylight savings time was formally introduced in 1895 by New Zealand entomologist George Vernon Hudson, who advocated advancing clocks for extended evening pursuits, a notion later refined by British builder William Willett in 1907 to enhance energy efficiency and leisure time, with a corresponding fallback to harmonize with diminishing daylight. The practice gained prominence during World War I in 1916 when Germany, Austria, Hungary, the United Kingdom, and the United States adopted daylight savings time to preserve coal reserves, reverting clocks in October, a measure that persisted through World War II's wartime and was standardized in the United States by the Uniform Time Act of 1966. With the fallback now fixed in November, though its energy-saving efficacy remains a subject of ongoing debate, which they do need to leave the clocks alone. I understand the historical context of it, but we just need to leave the clocks either in fallback or spring forward. It screws too many people up, and it causes too many health risks. Now lastly, you gotta prep that home for fall time. Since fall time's coming up, make sure you winterize that AC, inspect roof and chimney, clean gutters, change out windows and door screens if needed. Say goodbye to outdoor living, unfortunately. Got to put the outdoor furniture up, rake the leaves when they fall, trim landscaping and prep the gardens. Make sure there's no hornworms in the gardens, as we did have that this year in our garden, unfortunately. Remove hoses and turn off spigots. Store lawnmowers, test snow blowers, irrigate the lawn and fertilize it, and seal driveways and walkways. And of course, here's to those who are seeing how long they can freeze before turning on the heat for the first time. Gotta save that money, y'all. Of course, as it gets cold, you gotta protect your plants from frost. Frost is gonna be coming up before you know it. Just make sure you water them, cover them up if you're under a frost advisory or a frost warning. Make sure you mulch them up and all that kind of stuff. Screenshot this if you want to. And of course, once you're all done with all the fall prep, go out, get yourself some good old pumpkin spice, as Starbucks and Dunkin' are going to be releasing their pumpkin spice very soon. I think they've already released it, but if they have, then get out there and treat yourself with some nice pumpkin spice, and enjoy your pumpkin spice if you're watching this video, by the way. So I hope y'all enjoyed this little fall outlook. I know it was a highly detailed and long video. Hopefully y'all got a lot out of it and enjoyed it. Now what I'm expecting for this fall, basically, to wrap this all up, basically I would expect the western part of the country to be a little bit drier and warmer than normal for this fall, while the eastern part of the country is going to be a little bit cooler and wetter. Now this is in contrast with the Climate Prediction Center's thoughts, but of course I think they're getting their data for September, so again, please take this forecast with a grain of salt. Really, anything over a week out, it's pretty much impossible to forecast, and these seasonal outlooks are just predictions. They are not actual forecasts. Please, again, take this with a grain of salt. So again, I hope y'all got a lot out of this. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully y'all have your pumpkin spice by now, or enjoying pumpkin spice season. We're coming in on spooky season before y'all know it. So again, like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate all y'all for watching. Have a great day. Until next time, never stop forecasting.